Out there, you can see me? Now, you must understand that we are in a tent, and it's very cold. Look how the participants are active, listening to me. Please greet to the happy few in the world, the happy few. On me now. Today you saw the demonstration of Julia. And then you saw how she started with huge difficulties, not only because she didn't know anything, but she also had naturally, from nature, certain problems with her voice. And then you have seen how she has managed to fight and find solutions. What is this? What is the most interesting thing in her demonstration? Not only the results of the process which has been following and the results she has achieved, but the fact that each of us is the blacksmith, the creator of her own technique. And technique, it means the shrewdness, the intelligence, and of course the ability of using what nature has given us. Methods were invented after those who had been using them found, this has functioned for me. And therefore, they wrote about it. And then the other who read it said, Stanislavski, extraordinary actor. If I follow what was useful for him, it will be also useful for me. Grotowski was doing this. If I do this exercise, I also will become like Richard Cheslak. No. The training, all the learning process is a fiction. It is in reality a fiction. A fiction in the sense that it does not correspond to the reality. The reality is the moment when you are facing the spectator, because this is our profession. How to entertain other people. To this entertainment, you can give many values, many meanings. Just entertainment, it's very difficult to entertain people. Look at Broadway. Let's learn from Broadway how professional must be a musical in Broadway in order for years to go and attire people. It's not great metaphysics, it's not ritual there. It's skill, it's work, it's sweat of dancers, of singers, of musicians. And this is our profession, skill which you learn. But when it comes to the personal process of how to be skilled and be able to work with others, then you have to be intelligent. You will have a teacher saying something, and then you have to know that this may be inspiring or opposite, may be hindering you. And then you have to find out. You have to be able through work, not only saying, this is not interesting, ISTA, get up early in the morning and then listening to a thing, what I get out of it. I want to be skilled, I want to be efficacious, functions in relationship to the spectator. Why should I listen to all these voices in the morning? You can Christian. You are free. This is our problem, that we are free, that nobody takes us and obliges us to certain things anymore. Because this is what is the lesson of the tradition, of the traditional performing genres in any culture. In Europe, go into a dance school, a ballet school, a modern dance, and you will see how they are working. When we speak of discipline, it is not the military who are obliged to do this, and there is a surgeon obliging them to do this. Discipline, it means to learn. Discere in Latin means to learn. Discipline is the process of learning, and you must apply certain rules to yourself in order to learn. Discipline is not something which comes from somewhere else. But discipline can be imposed, and then you can accept or refuse it. If you don't want to go military, then you become an objector of conscience. Say, I don't want to carry a weapon. And then you are an objector of conscience. There was a time when objectors of conscience went to jail. They accepted to go to jail, but they were free. You are free to choose. But there is another form of discipline, self-discipline. This is what we all see every day, and which are the models for many people. Singers, do you think they come out there and sing? Their preparation. Or the athletes in football, players. Do you think they just go there and are Ronaldo like this? Do you know how many hours and hours and hours have been working and sacrifice for the family? Discipline is this. You have chosen certain things, then you yourself decide how much you want to engage yourself. So I go back to the demonstration of Julia. And of course, in our profession, what makes us react as spectators is the voice. And when I speak about voice, I speak about music. I speak about vulnerability. There are voices which are excellent, extraordinary, and they can sing very well. Aesthetically, it's a pleasure. But strangely enough, they are not vulnerable. I listen to them, and there is something. And try to yourself to go back to your own personal experience. You go and hear a lot of singers or actors speaking and singing, and then say, aha, she was good. But there are certain actors, or actresses, when they are singing, suddenly show something else. I call it vulnerability. And then you have a feeling that this actor who is, in a way, a sort of soldier. You can call it a soldier. What does it mean to be a soldier? Someone who is ready to fight. And of course, an actor is ready to fight for her own motivations. Why are you here on the stage and speaking? Eugenio Barba. I have my motivation, of course. There are many. For the first, I earn money with this. This is my way of getting every day food and clothes. Then, because I do it for my mother. I like it. that my mother, I want to thank her, that she gave me freedom to do what I wanted. I do it because I really enjoy being with my family. My family are all these teachers whom I've been knowing for many, many years. I admire each of them going in a different way, but each of them extremely coherent. Because this is logic. Logic is to be coherent. Logic, it means I take a point of departure and then I develop according to this point of departure. I want to be a Baul and then I be a Baul, real. I want to be a commercial actor. There is nothing wrong with being a commercial actor because you have to work as hard as a Baul if you really feel that the profession obliges you to give the best to the other. So all this preparation concretely is very linked to your personal intelligence and motivation. Why we are doing all this? Why we want to be actor or director? And how I can become it? It's very important, this sort of basic, almost elementary, and very, I would say, pragmatical way of thinking. So when we started, I had no experience with teaching voice. And I was very afraid of saying anything to my actors because I didn't know how to do it. So the only thing I did was to teach them what I had been learned at the theater school, which were the resonators, and I had been seeing Grotowski using, because when Grotowski worked with his actors, and then the actor was saying the text, cantami la nebbia agli irticolli, piovigginando sale, sotto il messaggio. Then Grotowski would say to the actor, at the second line, use the throat resonator. La nebbia agli irticolli, piovigginando sale. So in this way he modulated the incantatio, the incantation of the actors, of his actors' way of saying the text. If you go and see the films of the Grotowski performance, you will see clearly this very technical way of going from one resonator to another resonator, and creating out of these technical changes sort of flow, which depended also on the individual motivation and inner world of imagination of the actor. But after a while, I understood that this resonator way of working with the voice was good, but something was missing. And then, also another thing. When I started working, I worked in Poland. And then I was speaking Polish. And all my, I would say, way of thinking is still Polish. Because all things I've been absorbed, especially a lot of books I've been reading in Polish, remained here. So often I think in Polish categories. When I began to work with my actors were Norwegian, and I started speaking Norwegian to them. And language means a lot in the communication. So when I start, I didn't speak very much because I didn't know what to say at that time. And, but there was one word which became very important. It was the sats. But sats in Norwegian means impulse. So when I say start, let's say walk, with, as it has been demonstrated, I think, by Julian the first day, we were learning to go in different way, in using the foot. I mean, when you have a foot, you know that I can begin to go with the heel, and then I go with the heel, or I can go with just with the plant there, as it has been shown in flamenco, or I can go first with. So out of these three very elementary way of using the foot, then I can have a little the foot there. We start finding the thousands of variations. So this was the way we were working. And what you notice, if you do all the time, no, stop and then impulse to go forward. And this was called SATS. So the SATS became, for me, a very important factor, a sort of spark of energy, which is noticeable only by the nervous system. It is not something which you are demonstrating. It is something organic. And then I start speaking, thinking, there lies the physical action. The physical action. So I start speaking about physical action, and the physical action had only two words, which I said, no, your SATS is too much. I said, ready to start? And somebody was saying, no, the SATS is too much, your SATS. Take the right SATS. So I could say SATS, too much SATS, too little SATS. I could say, and the actor understood. The other word was Kraft. What does it mean, Kraft, in German or in Norwegian? Kraft, it means power. So, power. Kraft, but this word power, when is in Norwegian, is also used for Kraftwerk. Kraftwerk, it means the central of power with electricity. So the word Kraft is associated with something creating energy. Automatically. Therefore, I think the language, the working language is fundamental. I mean, when Stanislavski was using the word pereživanie, it was not identification, all the translation. It was pereživanie, which means to live again. But to live again, it doesn't mean that you identify with something. So, exactly like Verfremdung of Brecht. In German, Verfremdung, it's very clearly how to estrange, a process of estranging, and it's not just not using emotional process. So, in the moment we translate the language of the one who was using as a working language, Stanislavski, Grotowski, then unwillingly we are creating not a sort of I would say, limitation, because it does not correspond exactly linguistically to the emotional and semantic meaning of the word used by them. So I was saying to my actor, you are using too much craft, which means that you had you were showing too much. And the actor was saying, immediately was diminishing the craft. So I had only two words. They were important, but with this I've been working until today. I never speak about all this which I speak to you, because this is a typical way of following a verbal, intellectual, and rational way of transmitting a knowledge which cannot be in reality transmitted through words. Because to be an actor is a knowledge which you embody. So if you ask me, is this embodied knowledge in contrast, can be reconciled with this? Of course, because human being, life itself, consists of a complementarity. If there is night, there must be the day. If there is love, there must be hate. And if there is silence, there must be shouting. So, the same is for us. All our knowledge consists of embodied knowledge and intellectual, rational knowledge. You cannot separate them. You cannot separate them. Certain people are stressing, emphasizing the rational, intellectual, explicative knowledge, and then go to the universities. And there, actors have a sort of wisdom, of cleverness, of which. So when scientists come with these mirror neurons, all these things are things which the actors knew from the very beginning of the professional theater, because it's something, you know, that if I have to go there and while I'm speaking I do this, the spectator anticipated my going to the line. In working with this and developing more and more, remember, as autodidact, this is the pleasure. The pleasure is that reading helps enormously. Reading, although reading is a fiction, I would say, because it cannot correspond to the reality of the process of the actor, but it is inspiring for our imagination. We all have a dialogue with ourselves. In our imagination, our fantasy all the time is not only controlling coldly how I put my fingers, but I can say, I'm now caressing a cat, or caressing a cheek of somebody, and then at once my body is one with my thought or my what I'm thinking, imagining. So this with the physical action was there present, and then came my question: if there is a physical action, does it exist also a vocal action? And then resonators didn't give me the answer. The resonators were just producing an acoustic change. And then I came to this image. I must say that I'm a person who thinks with image. And when often speaks through image, although I know that I confuse people because I'm not speaking of the real thing. I'm creating a correspondent, an equivalent. So I imagine that my voice is an arm. And then I can have my arm here beside me, but if I start extending my arm because I want to touch the nose of Francesco, then my voice changes because my arm has to go there. And if I want to go and warm my arm, my hands there at the fire, I have to reach there. And then if I want to say, oh, what a pleasure, I will keep the same volume, but then will change. Ah, what a pleasure. And also this little thing. And then I will let the voice come back here, my arm. So this was what I, together with my actors, start developing. Then I became aware that voice can do different actions. And then you have been doing all this vocal action working with Julia. When she says, let your voice climb the Everest, then you begin to start climbing, and then you will discover this, that you are climbing up to the top. It comes by itself. As just when I can say, I will speak to somebody. When you go in a church, You don't start, you don't speak like this when you go in a church. You speak like this. If you go to a funeral, you speak like this. If you go to a marriage, you don't speak like this. You speak like this. So you see how the voice is able to act or to react. And this was the training. What I'm trying to say that all these are physical, or if you want, psychophysical, because always our brain is involved, our imagination. Although we are not aware of it, there is a way of the body thinking that we cannot control. So I let the process be the teacher. I let the work be the teacher. But in order to do this, at the beginning, you must have a base. And therefore, it's good to follow somebody or to go to some school. But then afterwards, you have to find yourself out of this very basic. How can I use my voice so that she can act and react as a living element, like fire, like water? Or how can I, through my behavior, be able to create this sort of radiation or interest in the spectators? In all these years, I never used the word energy, and we never use word energy at the Old Interpret. Never. When I start using energy, when I became aware that looking at the Asian performers in classical ballet in Europe, that all the beginning of the work, when they were children, it was a very mechanical and physical work. It was very strange, because when I went and saw Katakali, I told you the experience of seeing the performers, and for certain moments really fascinated me. And I couldn't understand why, because there was no meaning which I was able to catch, or the convention of the stories were so far away. So there was something with the physical. And then, but they started without all this psychological stuff, which is a characteristic in our Western contemporary theater. And therefore, since this was also my experience, when I began, I never was thinking of psychology, because I'm not a psychologist, and I'm very afraid of hurt people. I am a typical, I would say, a typical coach, like sport. In a way, I'm preparing athletes, and then the victory depends on their legs, how much they run, and but of course also how the capacity of enduring the fatigue, the effort, and the pain also, which the running of a marathon consists of. So, watching the way they were teaching the Asians in the classical ballet, in pantomime, the crew, all the schools of the crew, then I understood that there was this base of principles. The most important thing is balance. And this is not, of course, you can say psychologically, start psychologically sitting. You can sit, take the text, and then say, to be or not to be. Okay, you can start saying, I don't know, I must say that I've never been working with a psychological, in psychological way, but I can imagine, I would say, yeah, but to the actor, imagine that To be or not to be is like to be what it is. It is a wave coming to the beach. This sort of energy, and then retiring, not to be. Because all the time, words have to be transformed in actions. This is the problem of the actor, or the task of the actor. I mean, if I say to be or not to be, it's not just to be or not to be. No, to be, it must be an action behind it. An action which involves the whole of my body. So this is the process I expect from my actors. But when I achieve this, I start writing, and somebody believes that this is a good process. Then, if I say to be or not to be, this would be my point of departure. The voice, what sort of action? You are caressing a woman, because to be, it is the moment of eros. And then to be, even better than embracing a woman is to sleep when you are tired. So, or not to be. I don't know. Now I'm, Julia is smiling because every time I try to pretend I'm an actor, I'm horrible. But just to explain to you how this of the vocal action and the physical action are behind the text. And psychology doesn't come because all the time we are emotionally involved. Am I emotionally involved now or not? And what sort of emotion I am showing? Love? Hate? Indifference? Engagement? What is an emotion? Why, when actors speak about emotion, I get very irritated? Because emotion is a complex reaction. You see a beautiful woman, then you have a reaction. It was the whistling. Then, those who have been studying emotions tell you emotion is a reaction, but a complex one, where simultaneously are different and contrasting processes. I, Eugenio Barba, am afraid of dogs, extremely afraid. If I see a dog, I get, because in South America, twice dogs bite me. So every time I see a dog, but I'm speaking to you, a dog comes in. I get afraid. This afraid is something which I can notice because are physical, even physical reactions which I cannot control. I can get red, I can start sweating. So my first reaction is to run away. And then there is another thought. Eugenio Barba, but you are a very serious person. People are listening to you. You cannot run. You have to remain here. Then I remain here. And sometimes I have to show that I am a person who controls everything. So I go towards the dog and caress the dog. This is the complexity of the emotion. There is a beautiful page in the Elective Affinities. Is a novel by Goethe. And there is a girl, a little girl, becomes orphan and runs, and the mother dies. And this mother's sister takes care of her niece. And when this niece is 14 years old, she sends her to a school. And then after 1 year, she comes back home. and the aunt goes towards her, and the niece comes, falls on the knees, and embraces her. And the aunt is surprised and takes it, but you must not kneel in front of me. And the girl answers, I'm not kneeling in front of you. I want to feel the warmth I felt when I was a child. I answered, extraordinary. Get it? So what we are doing with our body is not just a sort of I'm hating, I am, and there is. It's very complex. And this complexity is maybe I would say, the pleasure of being an actor. How can I demonstrate this? That at the same time, these 5 different reactions. I am afraid, this is afraid, for instance, so my legs want to go run, and then I'm thinking, I'm saying I'm a professor, the head like this, and then I know that I have to, so I will start composing in this way all these different reactions which are simultaneous in an emotion, if you want to work with emotions. But you can also work in a different way. You can work through creating associations. If I want to create an association of something hard, I begin with the voice to speak. And now I can say, I love you, my dear girl, or my dear son, you are most preferred. I would sacrifice my life for you. Then you see that already you are creating this construct where the spectators doesn't not find the usual, what we call at the audience theatre, to put butter on fat. The same you can do with the body, giving a certain image, a certain association of harshness, and the voice and the opposite is very soft, or opposite. So you can, the first thing, you all the time have to think, I have to be, to create complementarities. The only thing which shows life is complementarity. So how can I create what we so beautiful call drama? What is drama? It's conflict. And what is conflict? It's not only that you are hitting each other. Conflict is just antagonistic forces. And these antagonistic, which are going in different ways, they can also, keeping their identity, create a unity. All this I find in the work of the teachers we have been working with. In their first position, I find the ideogram of life, vulnerability, force, power, impulse, and vulnerability. All there, it's there. When you see all of them, just sitting, the way they sit, the way they take position, then you have this. And all this was achieved not through psychology, but through a rigor. If I use the word discipline, you think of soldiers. No, you are wrong. You have to think of eremites, sannyasin, people going and doing a short, maybe breathing, maybe yoga, maybe, but postures, but there is a sort of dialogue with yourself in order not to be what you are. You have to see what is the complementarity of me. What is the way to freedom? Because this is what the actor becomes. Freedom is not a state. It is a process where you are arrived to a sort, just like climbing. They are just like happiness. You arrive there, happiness. But you can't remain there. You have to come down from the Everest. You can't live in happiness. You can't live in. So many of these questions you are asking me, they are very I am not able to answer you. But believe me, when you ask me, for instance, if there is a center of energy in the body, I know that pragmatically, it's very important to keep the torso as the steering part of the body. This is what I know. But I know that other traditions put the center somewhere else. It doesn't matter where you put the center. The only thing which is important is that it functions for you personally. That the Japanese put there in the hara, and the Italians put it in somewhere else. And this you have to understand. Okay, I put my center of energy in this little finger. Okay, then I have to find out how this inspires my body. This is the problem. Because if I tell you, the center of energy is in the hypophysis, anatomically. All the scientists have found that the center of energy is in the hypophysis. Please, does it help you? No. If I say, okay, in the liver, the center of energy, oh, this is, you can even read the name, the working. Remember, this is working language. I remember in the beginning of this research, when I was in Japan, and I was all the time asking, it was with the with the Kanze family. I was watching, and then I was going to the and asking, but how do you achieve this sort of presence? I was using the word presence. And then you would say, koshi, very important. How do you call it, this sort of koshi? Koshi. This is the translation of energy. Koshi. Then a friend said, koshi, hips. What do you mean hips? Yes, koshi means hips. It was just like sats, which is the impulse to jump. Koshi for Japanese is keep your hips without moving them. This is. And therefore, he was saying me something which I could not understand simply because I didn't know the Japanese word. So many of the question about energy, forget energy. The only thing you have to know is that there is a change. That you have to be able to, and this change must be small, not big. Because of course, if I do a big change, you notice it. But to dominate the small change. Why Buto is extraordinary as a technique? Because it works all the time with small changes. With the whole body, it is as the body is disintegrating and reintegrating all the time. This is the impression from a physical point of view. Remember, theater anthropology is based on the principle of physical anthropology, which, as you know now, is not politically correct, because it has to do, it deals with people. People living on the mountains are different from people living in the plains. But if you say this, automatically it becomes that they are better because they have bigger lungs than those who are in the plains who have smaller lungs. So since the political correctness has been invading our planet, many of the things which are evident before were not. But theater anthropology has to do just with the way the anatomy of the human being is working, is adapted to the situation, or informing somebody else. Putting inform into forms, sounds, text, or gestures and immobility. So, all the questions about energy are, in a way, not relevant. Although we all the time work with energy. Somebody asked me, where is the bridge between imagination and the center of energy? It's this, for me, if you ask, are the same thing. There's a unity there. Of course, I can lay down on the beach, imagining to be, it's very hot, imagining to be in a very cold country, because, yeah. So, am I separating myself? No. So remember, we are all the time a complementarity. So, difficulty in answering. Many of these questions I have difficulty in answering because they are not pragmatic. And I'm extremely pragmatic. I want to do performances which don't bore the spectators. And therefore, I work so much on the details of my actors. How imagination influences the movement of energy? Of course, imagination is just like psychological process. If I imagine that I am a dwarf, immediately I begin will be smaller. If I imagine I am Hamlet, a Danish prince, 180, automatically I become 180 in my body. So imagination, all the time our body is, but it's not imagination put somewhere. Imagination is all my whole body. You saw a performance by Parvati. You remember with all the paintings and this unbelievable story of this god who loves Radha and even makes love with her. And she's jealous. This is the most trivial human story. And then the last episode when he becomes king, and then he doesn't send for her, and then she comes to visit him, presents herself, and speaks, I'm a gopi, I'm one of the milk girl, and she asks, do you remember Radha? Then he smiles. Because Radha is within here, you say. This is imagination and body. It is within us. Apparently there is separation. And it's very useful to think, this is just imagination, this is all the body. But the very moment in life, all the time, this is unity. What is the emotional center of the body? How it works? When I was in a military school, one of my officers used to tell this story. At once we arrived. You have to pass a musical, a medical visit in order to be fit to the army, and also a psychological test. So the psychologue asked one young man, well, what do you associate to a cow? Maria. What do you associate to a man? Maria. What do you associate to fire? Maria. What do you associate to an umbrella? Maria. But why are you answering all the time Maria? Because I have all this in my head. You see? So this was what is the emotional center in the body. Is there a center of energy outside of the physical body? Probably there is a center if we define energy abstract, but if you say, for instance, the President of the United States, well, this is a center of energy. Or if you say the Bernadette, the director of the woman who is leading all this stuff, yes, there will be, and she may have a lot of influence on me, because if the President of the United States decides something, it has consequences. The same Bernadette, if today is going to give us double portion of cake, so you see, the first thing the actor should be is concrete, because it doesn't help to know that the center of energy is outside. It doesn't help. You have to be really with the feet on on the floor. So there is a center of energy. I could say space. Space is an energy. It is not like this air. It can be like rock. And then I have to fight against this rock. That's it. But it depends how you yourself think concretely. Think concretely. What is the essential element in the connection between the work you are doing on stage and the person, the spectators? Of course, this is decided by you personally. The relation which you have with the spectator, I think very often the actors forget the spectators is there, because he's so concentrated in what he's doing and the relationship to the others, and at a certain cue it has to go back, or at a certain change of light he has to change rhythm. So there are so many simultaneous tasks the actor is doing that often he forgets, or she forgets, the spectator. here I think that actors can answer better than me. So Julia, if you come, I know that actors have a different relation, each actor. I knew one actor or used to say, every time I go on stage, I have a spectator, which is important for me. And this spectator is my mother, although she's dead. But she's there. Therefore, I'm performing for her. So, can you say something about...
I'll tell you a story. Because once I was in front of a group of very young actors in Peru. And I have written that I started being an actor because I wanted to be whole. I did not want to be divided between my mind, because I used to study philosophy, and my body, because I used to do a lot of sport activity, riding, skiing, volleyball. And being an actor was the moment in which I could be whole, body, mind, but also I could be whole because I'm English, I grew up in Italy, and suddenly I found that I belonged to a different culture that was not England or Italy, but it was the theater that I belonged to. And while I was explaining this to these young actors, suddenly I got the image, no, I don't want to be whole. I want to be divided in each of you. And that is probably what also is when we're on stage. Yes, we have to build our wholeness, but in fact, what we want is that each spectator stays with something that has happened on stage. And I was talking to Yalan the other day, and Yalan was saying, but I don't want spectators who just come to see a show. I want spectators that feel deeply. I said to Yalan, but you can't choose the spectators. You have to do for everybody. And of course, one or two spectators will be especially touched, but you don't know who they are. They might tell you many years afterwards.
Do you think that some people have a natural stage presence that has not need to be trained? There are many actors who have this capacity, but do they have the capacity of repeating the same thing in the same way? If they are able, so I would call them professional. Professional in the sense that the criterion for saying this is a professional actor is that one is able to repeat certain things. If you are doing a performance, you are presenting, you are not representing, because theater is representing something. It is fiction. But you can also go to say, this is my own body, and you know the performance of Marina Abramovich, or the one of people cutting their own body. So you can become it, but you cannot repeat it. I remember one of the most extraordinary performances I've seen. Was once again in Japan, and it was a Buto performance. I was invited there. It was very few people, And it was a very good young dancer. Was very beautiful. He had very long hair. And then at a certain point of the performance, he starts cutting all his hair and shaving his head and continued to dance. And then I was told afterwards, I remained shocked because this is you can do only once, this performance. This was in homage, a performance, homage to his teacher who was present, Ichikata. So you can do this. You can have this capacity of having presence, but have you the capacity also of doing this? Yes, if you have, well, God bless you. Most of us, most of you, have not this possibility. Then I have here a lot of questions which what is my position towards the rest of the theatrical world? I must say I'm totally indifferent to what the other people is doing. Sometimes I look at it because it's interesting, sometimes it doesn't interest. I don't think in category of belonging to theater. I think in category I belong to a certain type of theater. And then I have my own personal tradition. And the tradition of what I call my ancestors. They are Stanislavski, Merkel, Bakhtangov, Eisenstein, Brecht. Strangely enough, no Artaud. Artaud is not in my tradition. But, of course, living theater, Julian Beck and Judith Malina. Grotowski, it's very strange because Grotowski was all my age. So I never had a sort of, most of my tradition are dead people. So as to them, I have a dialogue. Not to what happens, yes, there are fashions. After 60 years in this work, I've seen so many fashions, so many changes. But I all the time work with certain needs. Let me call this. I like to work with the same people and to become old together with them, working, and trying to see how can we keep ourselves in life by changing what we already know. We cannot transform totally ourselves, but can we change? And therefore the performance, each performance becomes something which obliges, I have an obligation not to repeat what I already know. And therefore I can come and be so crazy to say, okay, I will do a performance in 8 days because I've never been doing a performance in 8 days before. But this is the challenge I give to myself, and of course I've given to you also. Why there are no master of psychological realist acting in ISTA? I don't know masters in psychological acting, teaching. I don't know. I've known many of the others, but this is not a school. If you ever read the Journal of Theatre Anthropology, in the first issue there, I state clearly, I want to create a school which was not a school. This is not a school. You are not learning anything here. You are learning that, okay, the different traditions have different positions, postures. This is what we have been learning. And then to get up early, maybe. But then you will forget quick. So, this is, as I stated before, a physical anthropology. It states of an anatomy. And no, when you work with psychological, it is in connection to a very precise play that you have a character. The psychological method is applied to how to embody, how to enact a character, not to have, to teach presence. So this is the purpose of ISTA, gather, and it's a sort of comparative situation where we can approach different traditions, see not only the basic, but also, very important, that all these teachers have their own mythology, their own vision of the world. This is what is the unity I've been speaking before. Their body, mundane, as Parvati mentioned, but from the mundane, then you go over to another non-mundane dimension. What is the freedom of actors? Where is the place of freedom in discipline? Strange enough, for me, discipline is synonymous of freedom. I choose myself to do this. This the first act of freedom is that I'm choosing to do this, not because it's imposed. If I go to a theater school and pay even, this is the moment of freedom. I chose to go to the theater school. Freedom is the possibility of choosing and realizing your choice. Because I can say, oh, I choose to go to Miami for a vacation. But if I have no money, I am not free. So if I have enough money to go to Miami for vacation, then I am free to do what I want. So when you use certain words, discipline, freedom, technique, you have to define them to yourself. Don't accept definitions given by others. Try to find your own, homemade, I would say, definition. Of course, I think that actors, through their rigor, achieve a state of awareness which I cannot achieve sitting there as a director. And why? Because I can see them clearly. They have a capacity of simultaneously being able to see if a spectator is moving a leg, that the costume of a colleague is not well, that so many simultaneous. There is a simultaneity. I'm very fascinated by an actor speaking and at the same time preparing something behind, because no, he will extract it. So this capacity of becoming, I would say, polyforms, many forms, at the same time, and each with its own perception or its own way of reacting. This is what I can notice when actors, several actors, are working together. Embodied knowledge is very important. And why is written knowledge so important to you? Because I have not embodied knowledge, personally. And when it comes to actors, actors can only have embodied knowledge. It is like surgeon. a doctor operating. It is not question of being creative. If you are a doctor, you cannot be creative. You must. You cannot improvise on your. This is what the Nazi did. But so once again, the knowledge, with world knowledge, is the result of complementarity. Something which we've been learning by experience. We have not read in a book that if you go and touch fire, you are burned. Even if you read it, you understand with the head, and then you go and touch fire because you have not. The senses teach you. So the sensorial knowledge. We are learning since we are children how to adapt. When we are standing, our parents teach us how to sit, and they teach us in different way. In Japan, on a tatami, squatting. In India, the same. In Europe, on chairs. So all this technique, which we call spontaneity, are body technique. And then you should read a very small text by Lévi-Breuil, which is called the technique, body techniques. And he analyzes all the technique of walking, of sitting, of eating, of making love, everything in the different cultures. And then he says there are even techniques which makes the human being, physical techniques, being able to go into another state of awareness, the so-called ecstatic techniques. And here I stop.
No. 2 more questions from the participants.
2 more questions?
Yes, very quickly if you want. Puoi rispondere anche in fretta se vuoi. Ci sono altre 2 domande. One is asking the act of the actor can correspond to an act of resurrection. I think it is the question, sorry.
Once again, what is resurrection? You have to resurrection is to stand up from the dead. This is what we say, I resurrected. But you can sometimes, you see somebody and say, oh, you are resurrected. Last time you saw, you were completely, and now it's full of light. It can be a concrete action to resurrect, or it can be a metaphor. And of course, one can say as a metaphor, if resurrection is meant as a sort of transformation or revitalization of a certain situation or a person, then we can say that there is a resurrection. But one can say performance is a sort of evening resurrection of all the energies which during the whole day have been doing trivial gestures and tasks, but then in the evening they transform themselves and become something else. So yes, we can say this resurrection, but and you can believe it. It is fantastic if you believe it. But you can't go to an actor and say, wait, I teach you resurrection. You understand? But the moment you are transmitting your knowledge, your experience, your values, because any technique, the moment it is taught, when one teaches a technique, the teacher represents the values of these procedures, which are just a mechanical movement. So it's very important to believe in such things, but this belief should not be spoken of. I think that what is very important should be kept for ourselves inside. Now, through Facebook, there is a sort of everything must be presented to the others. But I think what is vital for us, personal, I cannot, for the first I cannot put in words, I must say, I cannot put in words what is. But at the same time, I know that this is a sort of personal secret. I could even say words, put into words, but I don't want, because it is there, existing, it's animating me. And when I speak of which theater I belong, it is to a tradition where people, certain people, once again, Stanislavski, Meigel, Brecht, etc., until Julian Beck and Judith Malina, they were transmitting the secret through what they were doing specifically. So you, but this secret, which one, each one, has, you can be aware or you not be aware. You can call it resurrection or not resurrection. But at the end, when we think of why I'm doing theater, secret is important. When I think how do theater, secret is less important, because how important is this sort of process, personal process, which engages completely different forces in us than those of the secret.
Ultima, we have been working with the masters on reduction also, riduzione. Then we have seen the work with you and Istvan asking to reduce and the difficulty in doing that. And then you were mentioning the difference between the actor and the dancer. So, is this different a question that the actor work with actions and the dancer with virtuosity? It's not my question, it's a question.
No, I don't understand the question.
La differenza tra l'attore e il danzatore è che l'attore lavora con le azioni e il danzatore col virtuosismo.
The main difference is on what I would call dramaturgy. And by dramaturgy, I mean a succession of events. The peripetia of which Aristotle was writing about. The dancer works with physical events. All the time he is moving. And he builds a dramaturgy, a structure, a succession and simultaneity of movements according to certain designs and in relationship to space and time, which means rhythm. These are, I would say, the universe, the professional universe of the dancer. There are many other aspects, but this is, first of all, the essence of a dancer's dramaturgy. The actor who has a text, he has to find intentions which animated the character. So anything he's doing is not the base of certain beauty or efficacy of the movement, but according to a coherence which it is character has. So for the actor, the intentions are fundamental, and by those intentions they motivate certain movements, while for the I can, in this process, I can reduce, because we know very much, we have seen a lot of films where two people are eating together and they are in love and they desire each other, and any gesture becomes a sort of erotic. Yeah, we know this. We have seen it in films. Good actors are able to do this. So this is the main difference between actor and dancer. The category of judging the result are different. Yeah, Mirna?
I have a question. The other day, you mentioned that we all have kind of a responsibility to pass the anthropology theater. So I asked myself, how Eugenio would like anthropology theater to be passed to the future generation. It is in these days that we all live in a culture that we all mix with different cultures. Would that be the constantly searching of our ancestors' cultures and roots, and keep those cultures to our modern and future dates? So that's kind of my question.
I'm very limited in my ambitions. I don't think that this should be passed on. I will be frank to you. I don't care if it's passed on or not. I know that I have to do this. The only thing I know is that I have to do this for you now. What we are going to do, it is already something which does not belong to my decisions, but to your decisions. You are my future. In the end, theater anthropology is very simple. It's not very elaborated. It explains there are three principles. If you master them, then you have already certain degrees of presence. Balance, change your balance, be incoherent in your coherence, or the coherent incoherence, the late, and oppositions. These three things. It is like Freud saying it exists something called subconscious. Subconscious. Nobody had mentioned. I just put down. Name, they existed. I have not invented anything. I only put name to things which existed and made them, in a way, visible. When Freud says, the subconscious, put name to something which exists, you see afterwards how many schools of psychoanalysis came out. So they cooked this subconscious in many different ways. So please cook theater anthropology as you want. The most important thing that you, as I mentioned, what Hegel, the owner of the workshop, who taught me the ethics of the work, this is at the end what counts. Not theories, it's sort of. But then if I say this, I become very moralist, because I'm speaking of honesty. I speak of being coherent with oneself. be respectful towards the other. I mean, I will speak of things which I personally need. I am deeply convinced of what a man in Palestine said 2,000 years ago, if he said this. Don't do to the others what you don't want the others do to you. This is what I'm trying in the work to do. But not because I am a Christian. I'm not a Christian. But because I want to be respected. And therefore I respect the others. But this sort of respect I can apply in my work, in my profession. So I don't know how, I don't see how theater anthropology, I know one thing, that all those people who in theater enunciate theories and method, the poor method was completely misunderstood by those who followed. The poor Stanislavski, the poor Merkel, so Grotowski. So it is in a way illusion to believe that ideas will live. Ideas change, but the needs of human being for being loved and accepted and respected, this will continue to exist. I will finish here. No more questions now? No, too late. Too late because we finish here. Arrivederci. We are friends. Out there. No. No, I'm sorry. 11:30. We have to go and work here now to make the rehearsal. So please, as we are, alla battaglia.
We just stay here.
Come in?
No, 15 minutes, no? To
We
prepare.
have a pause.
Yeah.
No,
15 minutes.
5 minutes.
15.
No, we will make a pause doing the work. We will rest in the work.
No, well, some people need to prepare, get shoes.
Okay.
have